Good evening, everybody. It is day 34, if you can believe it, just like that, of 365 days, going over the greatest book ever written. And I'm starting like a minute early. I'm just going to copy this real quick. So bear with me, please. And let me see who's here. Got some people chiming in. Hi, John. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Jules. How are you? I am just going to post this real quick. And let's see here. Greatest book. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Dallas. Okay. And let me see here. Copy. Whew. This weather has been swinging around in Illinois. I don't know what the weather's like for everybody else, but it definitely feels a little weird at times, you know? I'm just going to finish posting this in one other spot here and then get going. So thank you guys for your patience. I did enjoy tonight's readings. I hope everybody had a little time to look at them. I do think, maybe what we can do, maybe what I'll start to do is try to get on a couple minutes early, and then people who took the time to read the readings, if they post some of the questions, or even if they post, during the broadcast, and then we could try to start going over some of them and kind of talk about them. And then even if people write questions in there, if people respond to their questions, that would be wonderful. So if, for example, Dallas, if you had a question, you post it in the room, and then everybody else that sees it can kind of respond, and then we can do this, because I think there's a way. I was talking to my wife about it. We might be able to do GoToMeetings. I got to find out. I think GoToMeeting might have up to 100 or so people on it. The question becomes, what is the internet access like if we do a GoToMeeting? Yeah, so I don't know how that works. Post the comments. So Maria, I think I'm going to talk to my wife tonight, and maybe in the next few days, I think we bought an account we not bought one. We subscribed to an account with GoToMeeting for my work stuff, and since I subscribed to that for some work things, maybe we can just do a GoToMeeting, and then let people know that we have some space available. I could post this on YouTube and Rumble, and if more people want to join the group, great. If not, we can do GoToMeeting, and then maybe as I kind of go through each section, I'll try to be a little briefer, and kind of cut some of the things I'm talking about and open it up for other people to discuss their views. I think that'd be super cool. So, okay, wonderful. So with that, let's go to Exodus 17. Okay, so with Exodus 17, let me see here. People of Israel were still at Rephidim. The warriors Amalek attacked them. I guess Amalek. Those people, I guess, were people that kind of like wandered around. They were. I pulled them up. They're kind of like nomads, I guess, is what they were. I was just curious if they're still around, because obviously the Lord was not too kind to them and said that they will be at war with them generation after generation. So the Amalekites gained the advantage anytime Moses put his staff down, and then anytime he rose it up, Joshua and the troops would gain control. And, let's think about that for a second. Anytime you put the staff up, or you kind of live by the righteous and the truth and the word, you're winning, and you're more likely to succeed because you're following the truth of where it takes you. And anytime you kind of ease up on the truth and don't hold it firm and hold it up high, Joshua would suffer defeats. And I think that this story is also just about doing the right thing, standing for the truth, standing tall for the truth, not cowering. And anytime you cower, I do think that it hurts. You never benefit from cowering in anything, any activity in life. When you're not willing to have the difficult conversations with people, family or friends or relationships, you end up suffering more in the end anyways, and so does the other party. So the sooner you can deal with the truth of various situations, the less painful it is for everybody. There's a great story by this one gentleman who is one of the best CEOs in corporate America by the name of Jack Welch. Maybe some of you have heard of him. Well, I've read a lot about Jack Welch over the years, and he was one of the most successful CEOs in corporate America, and he's the one that turned around General Electric after it had been failing and so forth. Hi, Matt, how are you? And so what ended up happening with Jack Welch, early on in his career, he made a mistake, and it ended up blowing up a plant. Fortunately, nobody died, but this plant lost $10 million. That's how much this plant cost. I guess it was a small plant. Plants are much more expensive than $10 million today. But anyways, at General Electric, he was a young guy. He just got his engineering degree. He accidentally blew this plant up. Hey, Sarah, how are you? And this plant goes up in flames. And he's like preparing to leave, right? He's going to be fired for this. And sure enough, he didn't get fired. He's like, why would we fire you now? You've learned all these mistakes of what you did wrong. And we're going to make, you're not likely to make that mistake again. Well, it turns out Jack Welch stayed, and then he ended up building quite a career at General Electric. I think he made over $1 billion over his career there. And you got to remember, this was in the 80s. People weren't paid what they are now. So to make $1 billion, he grinded it out over, not that it wasn't a lot of work, but I think over 20 years. There's some CEOs that can pull that off in a matter of a few years because of the way technology is and just the difference in how Wall Street operates, I guess. But anyways, one of the things that Jack Welch talks about with regards to this story is that kind of relates to Genesis or Exodus 17, is he said that one of the things that he would judge his managers on is how quickly they made changes in people that weren't fit to be in the company in various positions. And this wasn't just employees, but also managers of managers. So like you were a manager higher up in the organization, how well did you make sure that someone that was promoted into a managerial role was moved out of it if they weren't equipped to handle it? And they were allowed to go back to what their competency was. So, for example, some engineers are great engineers, and they'll always be great engineers, but they'll never make good managers or great managers. But sometimes they get promoted up because they're there the longest. And Jack Welch would say you shouldn't do that because you might get the worst of both worlds. These people are miserable. They would have been much happier as an engineer. They never wanted the promotion, but this attitude that it's either up or out kind of hurt the situation to kind of hurt the talent of the organization. So anyways, he says, if you kind of drag on the decisions, if you don't have a good performance metric in place and people know where they stand, what happens is, somebody's there 10, 15, 20 years building a career, they're building a family, they have kids that are about to go to college. And because some manager of a manager or manager of other people didn't do a good job or was lazy along the way and not speaking the truth, they have to let them go because they can't get the job done. And they never were really getting the job done. They just kind of kept fudging it. And that's a delicate thing, folks, and because you want to be truthful, but you have to also be empathetic. But if those managers before the new ones replaced them were more empathetic and truthful, maybe that employee would have had enough time and enough runway to fix some of the issues that they had to go on to be a much better employee as well as manager within the company. So those things are all kind of tied to that. And so that's what I think of when I kind of read this Exodus thing. But doing the right thing, doing the thing in real time. You have to react in real time, and people deserve the truth in real time. And it's not easy, folks. To I know I've studied this in graduate school. Management and strategy, management, organizational design, and so that's what my MBA's in. And when you read a lot of this stuff, and you read strategy, and you read how organizations succeed or fail, a lot of us have this like I don't know. It's almost like it's the Wizard of Oz type of thing. It's like, oh, people they get to be a manager and they know exactly what to do. They wave a wand or something, and it's really not it's really not like that at all. It's gut wrenching. You're stressed, making decisions that impact people's lives for decades to come. Doing the right thing if somebody's not a fit, how to let them down lightly, or try to position them and transition them to a different company or within the company. It's a brutal job, and people underestimate how much stress and how many years it takes out of the person's life that has to do that job. And this kind of ties into the story of Moses. So anyways, right now, I'm bringing this up. It ties into Exodus 17, but it also ties into Exodus 18. So it's kind of funny, because Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses thought he can be a manager where he can do everything, right? He can be one of these micromanagers, and he didn't need to delegate. And part of that had to do with Moses being a little naive. He figured, you know what, God chose him. He can handle it all. God wouldn't have given him the problem if he didn't know how to handle it. Well, it turns out that God also gave him his father-in-law, Jethro. So Jethro had a nice long talk, with Moses, and told him, he said, look, here's the deal. You're going to burn yourself out. You have to break this problem down, and you have to figure out which disputes that you will be hearing, and then all the other ones you have to farm out, because if you don't do it, you're going to be worthless. You're going to throw you're going to walk away from it. Everybody's going to be worse off. And, theoretically you can end up dropping dead of a heart attack. I'm sure they had heart attacks back then too. Maybe they had fewer of them, but I'm sure they still had heart attacks, and other stressors kill them if they didn't know how to deal with the stress. That's the other thing, folks. When you hear this concept, and I'm going to go into the size of the organization that Moses was running. When you're dealing with stress, it's extremely important to know how to run your energy. So you have to balance your energy and your spirit. Some people will call it your spirit. I think your spirit and your energy are intertwined. Then obviously your mind, you need to, in a sense, power down your heart. Your computer, your mind is, if you think about it, the analogy, we created computers basically as a reflection of the way our brains operate. Whether or not people want to realize that or believe that, that's up to them. But in terms of our brains, they get defragmented. You guys ever know what it's like? You get too much gunk on the computer and you don't defragment it, right? It kind of gets sticky. Sometimes you have things in there that you need to kind of clear out in the garbage can. You got to pull that stuff out and clear off your desktop. You got too much stuff on your desktop. Your memory runs a little slow. It's not a coincidence that computers are designed the way our brains operate. And you should really, if you pay attention to how your computer behaves, you'll be shocked on how much it was designed the way we behave if you take the time to reflect on how your brain's behaving. And so, yes, when you sleep, you're defragmenting your brain. Absolutely. And the other thing that you're doing is as you defragment your brain, you're putting the things back in their proper place within your brain and reorganizing them. And maybe as stuff is kind of being put away in various compartmentalized, various compartments, maybe that's when cross cross-pollination of ideas takes place. Maybe that's what's happening, is as this information is kind of moving across one part of your storage in your brain. It's like, hey, what was that I just saw? And you get an idea that kind of springs up. So anyways, Moses was doing too much. He was probably going to have a system crash. And then his father-in-law had a nice, conversation with him and told him he should set up groups of 1,000 and 150 and then 10. Okay. And then they were there to solve people's disputes, and the ones that they couldn't solve would, work their way up the chain to Moses. And if you think about the way the military is organized worldwide, there's different chains of command. You think about other organizations and the way corporate America was for the first 50, 100 years of its existence in the U.S. It was very much a command and control hierarchy. Then it was decentralized, and decentralization led to more creativity, but it also led to a little more chaos at times, and frankly, it kind of led to more of a winner-take-all mentality. Whoever could create the most figured out how to capture most of the rents. So there was a political game taking place within organizations to try to optimize what they took for themselves. And unfortunately, that's the reality, folks. There's a lot of theory that goes into this, and I think some of this theory, the world would be a different place if more people learned this theory, and they knew that how they were being manipulated within an organization. I've never seen anybody really explain it, and I guess if I didn't really know, I studied a lot of business theory and history before I went to college, folks, and and like right before college, right during college, right after college, I read a lot of the theory of organizations, like how corporations came into existence. How Taylor figured out how to break down the theory of work. Peter Drucker was one of my idols, not idols, but role models. Like I don't have any idols. The only person I worship is God, and that's it. So, but in terms of people I really respected, Peter Drucker had a massive influence on me, and he's a management person. Tom Peters, I read everything I could get my hands on by him. And why am I telling you all this? Because these processes, these systems, they kind of rule the world, whether we realize it or not. Now, some people know how to use these frameworks to leverage their position within the structure and organization. And then there's also some people that use these structures to make sure that people aren't being taken advantage of. And it seems as though there's fewer people that are taking the time to learn all this stuff to make sure that other people are not being taken advantage of. And so that's what I would say is lacking. Somewhere along the way, we kind of lost that. And I don't know exactly what caused it. Obviously I do think I have some theories. I do think some of it was definitely attributable to us thinking we were going to change the Chinese culture, and they were going to be, become democratic, and they were going to, bring in all our institutions that have served us so well. But little did we know that human greed, human lust for power and wealth would would dwarf doing what was right by a lot of Americans that were in those positions of leadership in these companies and politics, that they would just take as much as they could for themselves and not worry about everybody else. And so that's where we find ourselves in. So this decoupling process of the United States leaving Egypt, so to speak, and their ties to this satanic communist cult of the CCP is definitely it's a work in progress, and hopefully more people go back to the roots of what made entrepreneurship exceptional in the United States, what unleashed the power of the individual, the role of God first in that whole process. And I think that if we do all that, I do think that we'll overcome this and come out much stronger on the other side when we get through this. But make no mistake, we're in the middle. I don't know where we are in that 40 years in the desert. I want to think that maybe it started in 88 with Bush. Maybe that's when we should officially look at it. So that means if it was 88, that means we're going to deal with this shit for at least another 7 years. 2028, I guess, would be 40 years if you start it with Bush, because obviously we'd be in year number 41 right now if it started when Bush was VP. But the Bush crime family, as I call them, they've earned that title. They've done a tremendous amount of damage, not just to the United States, but the entire planet. And it's horrible that they haven't been brought to bear for all their actions, not just for the past 40 years, but prior to that. Whole family has been corrupt. Go look into Samuel Bush. Go look into Prescott Bush. So Samuel is Prescott's father. Go look at the Bush's family connections to the Rockefellers. Samuel Bush was business partners with John D. Rockefeller's brother, and Samuel Bush was in charge of all the munition purchases for the entire country during World War I. These families have been calling the shots on this planet in this country for a very long time. There's one of the wealthiest families in U.S. history, the Livingston family, married a Bush, and they, consolidated their power about 100 or so years ago, I think. So that had a huge impact too. So, anyways, you should all look into this for yourself as well, and you can see, see what I'm talking about. So, with regards to Exodus 19, exactly 2 months after the Israelites left Egypt, they arrived in the wilderness. Okay, then he climbed, went to the mountain. This is a message you must give the people of Israel. I think this is where, I thought this was kind of interesting. So make sure you prepare the people for the arrival. Mark off the boundary around the mountain. Warn the people. And if anybody touches the mountain, they will be put to death. If any animals cross, they should be killed. Anybody else crosses, they should be killed. Moses went down to the people. He consecrated them for worship, and they washed their clothes. He told them, get ready for the third day, and then abstain from having sex, which is, you guys tell me what you thought about all this. He's basically saying, anybody crosses this line, you're going to get killed. Any animals, any people, and wash your clothes and don't have sex. I mean, I don't know, folks. You guys tell me what your thoughts about this one are. But I didn't really have any strong, insights on this story, other than, don't cross God. I guess if ever God tells you to do something, if you cross him, he has power of life and death over you. So, anyways, John, I agree. They probably made deals with the devil, no doubt about that. Definitely about obedience, but it's pretty strict and it's pretty harsh, with regards to Exodus 19. So if anybody else has any thoughts, I'll definitely read them out loud. But let's go to Matthew 22, because that one I wasn't too big of a fan of. So, but when the Pharisees heard that they had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, Sadducees, I guess is how you pronounce it. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap Jesus with the question, Teacher, what is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, you must love your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. The entire law and the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. Then, surrounded by the Pharisees, Jesus asked them a question. What do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he? They replied, he is the son of David. Jesus responded, Then why does David speak under the inspiration of the Spirit, call the Messiah my Lord? For David said, the Lord said to my Lord, sit in place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies beneath your feet. Since David called the Messiah my Lord, how could the Messiah be his son? No one could answer him, and after that, nobody dared to ask him any more questions. I have to tell you, when I was kind of going over this story again, obviously Jesus is, being the Son of God, you're pretty smart, right? You got to be pretty smart. but there's also a side of his intelligence where he definitely knew just a little bit how to kind of like poke the bear, and really kind of poke these people that really thought they were all that. And anyways, I thought that was pretty funny. Just kind of listening to that exchange, because I was kind of like hearing the conversation as I was reading it, and so it's pretty cool that Jesus had a way of not just silencing his critics, but making them feel pretty silly in the process as well, and by pointing out things that are really obvious to people that thought they were all that really weren't. So, anyways, I enjoyed Matthew 22 for that, from that perspective. So Matthew 23, Jesus said to the crowds and his disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they practice what they don't practice what they teach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Boy, how about it? I like that. The original mic dropper. Good job, Dallas. I agree with that one. And so, I think when I'm kind of listening to this part of Matthew 23, that a lot of these holier than thou, people that we kind of see in society, and some of these people that take the Lord's name in vain and they profit from the Lord. I think it's covered in this one a little further as well. I really like Matthew 23, but I can't help but think of these preachers going around driving Mercedes, or not Mercedes, but that's too cheap of a car. Driving Ferraris, probably Bugattis, they got their private jets, I can't help but think about Sam Kinison used to be a preacher before he became a comedian, and I know he's a little foul for most people, but he had some really good deliveries and lines. And actually, if you listen to Sam Kinison, I like Bill Burr, but I'm a little bummed that a lot of people that don't know about Sam Kinison, Bill Burr took a lot of his material. So I like the fact that Bill Burr came up with some of his own material, but I think he should have given a little more credit to Sam Kinison, because he literally seems as though he's copied a lot of his skits and just tweaked them a little bit. I'm never a fan of somebody lifting somebody's body of work and changing the delivery a little bit and acting as though it's their own. But that's just a personal thing. Maybe he really was inspired to do all those jokes on his own without ever hearing of the person named Sam Kinison. But anyways, this is the burden of this is one of the burdens of having a really good memory, because exactly where different things came into existence, and then when somebody else tries to pawn it off as their own, it kind of pisses you off. So one of the things that Sam Kinison used to joke around about, because he was a preacher for a number of years, and he couldn't get any. He wasn't a very good preacher, he said, because he could never get any money donated to him. That people loved to listen to him, but he never got any money. And so he would talk about these preachers that would go on. This was on TV right before the internet and stuff, and it'd be like, we need to raise $5 million for a water slide or something over here. They would come up with these crazy little requests and demands for what they needed. God told them that they needed this. And so anyways, I'm laughing, but I'm also like, it's kind of sad, because these people abuse their power, right? This is the whole point that we're going to talk about here, is that, these people, they build up this power that's given to them by people, right? People's prayers, people's thoughts, people's trust in them. And then they let it get to their head, and they completely abuse it, and they disrespect God. They disrespect everybody who put their faith in them to try to help them, guide them, and show them the way, so to speak. And it's extremely troubling. It's very bothersome that this happens. I think it seems to be part of the human condition that this seems to happen. I don't know why it does. It's one of those things that, I've definitely studied and tried to think about just in general. Where's that breaking point when somebody starts to lose sight the fact that we're all children of God and we're all equal before our God, and then starts to think that they have a higher standing than somebody else. And I think that's when people get lost. They really fall hard when they cross that line. Everything should unravel for them, frankly. If people do that, we see that in society more than ever. These politicians, these athletes, these people in Hollywood who somehow think they are better because other people like to watch them on the screen and stuff, or listen to things. And it's sad and pathetic at the same time. And, and disturbing. It's a lot of different emotions when you kind of unpack it. But boy, when they kind of cross that line, I think we should get a little faster about just leveling them. And pride cometh before the fall, right, Carolina? I like that. Perfect. You just set me up for that. It's like, right, with pride cometh right before the fall. You knock them right out, knock their legs out from underneath them, and put them back. Have them start back over at the bottom is my advice. Maybe if we did that more as a society, we wouldn't get this hubris that we have to unfortunately experience. And so everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra tassels. And they love to sit at the head of the banquets and in the seats of honor at the synagogues. You got to love Matthew 23. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk into the marketplace and be called rabbi. Don't let anyone call you rabbi. For you, I'm sorry, this is Jesus coming in now. So don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't let anyone address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your Father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you only have one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves must be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. And so, it's a good lead-in, because I do completely agree with everything that was said there. The people that try to build themselves up and act as though they're more important than everybody else, I do like the idea of them being humbled, and they should be humbled by the very people that they were thinking they were better than. That's the best way to humble them. The closer you can tie the people that were being mistreated to the humbling of the person that did the mistreating, I think that's one of the purest forms of justice, as far as I'm concerned. With regards to everybody, with regards to what he's saying, there's only one teacher, and that teacher obviously is Jesus Christ, is the truth, it's the way. And when I think about this with regards to teaching in the context of our lives, right, in this world, and there's other people that are teachers of different subjects in different fields, where does all the knowledge come from? That's a great question. Where do all these insights that any of us ever have come from? Now, I know there'll be some academics and atheists out there that'll say, somebody strung it all together and figured it all out and just they just got it just right in their brain, and they figured it all out. And I always kind of chuckle when I hear that, because who designed the brain? Number one, who designed the brain to kind of handle all this information? And this information is kind of like, if you think about it, how much information is in our brains, and how much knowledge we have, and how much we can tap into other knowledge around us, as well as our own knowledge that resides within us. I do believe it resides within our DNA. And so all these things, to act as though you figured it, you created everything, you created yourself from scratch. I mean, I think it's very humorous. So we can't even make a goldfish, folks. Like human beings, we can't figure out how to create a goldfish from scratch. Maybe they're working on it, but they're trying to create, biological creatures from scratch. But this concept that we can come up with, something as complex as us, as our as a human being, in our brain and everything else from scratch, is extremely laughable to me. I think it's very funny, that there's some people that let their ego get carried away like that. So anyways, that's my takeaway on this, because you only have one teacher, and that's the Messiah, and the Messiah is the one that has all the knowledge that we can tap into and use, to create the world that we want to live in. So that's that for Matthew 23. So we're on Psalm of David. Hear me as I pray, O Lord, be merciful and answer me. My heart has heard you say, come and talk with me. And my heart responds, Lord, I am coming. Do not turn your back on me. Do not reject your servant in anger. You have always been my helper. Don't leave me now. Don't abandon me. O God of my salvation, even if my father and mother abandon me, the Lord will hold me close. Teach me how to live, O Lord. Lead me along the right path, for my enemies are waiting for me. Do not let me fall into their hands, for they accuse me of things I've never done. With every breath, they threaten me with violence. Yes, I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. And, this Psalms 27, it's kind of, it's, once again, there's so many things that relate to what's going on in the world right now. There are a lot of parents that are, I guess, turning their back on their children. That happens more than it probably should. Part of it is because of our, misunderstanding, misuse of technology, both sides, right? So the parents should be the ones leading the example for their kids. Sometimes they're on the phone just as much as their kids, and those development, those lessons being passed down to the next generation, they've been disrupted greatly. People's ability to concentrate and to stay focused has really come down in a big way. People have a hard time lasting more than a couple minutes, I'm told, on a lot of stuff, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, which is very foreign to me. I can sit and read for 2, 3, 4 hours straight. Aside from a water break, I guess that's the only time I kind of stop reading. I'll just take a drink of water. And I like to do that in complete silence. And so, this concept of people not being able to do that, I think stems from the fact that, there's parents that have abandoned their kids by allowing them to think that they're somehow capable of raising themselves. And that's my takeaway from this. Children are still children, and they need to be able to, they need guidance, And this is kind of like a call for Lord to give them guidance when they're neglected, which is sad. At the same time, it's true that the Lord will be there, but it's also sad that they're not, that their parents are not there. Teach me how to live, O Lord. Lead me down the right path, for my enemies are waiting for me. The enemies are all around us, folks. There's people trying to do us harm every which way lately. Christianity is under attack. We're under attack. If you try to do the right thing, there's obviously instant gratification. There's a lot of different ways in which we're tempted all the time to do things that people shouldn't do. We're worn thin on our patience at times because of being run ragged. So then our temper flares up. We don't have as much patience and empathy for others as we should. It all kind of ties into this Psalms 27. You got to admit, once again, even for those people out there among us that don't believe the Bible is, the Word of God and a religious text, it's a heck of a wordsmith. because just looking at the words and all the different complex meanings in each of the words in the writings, that goes to show you like just how complex the human brain is. And even back then, folks, they didn't have a computer, they didn't have a dictionary to look all this stuff up. They had to know all this stuff. If you were a writer 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, I mean, you really had your stuff together, man. You had to really master all the words, and then you had to master it so that when you wrote, and you really thought about what that word was after you were writing, because you wrote it out in ink, and you don't want to rewrite the whole damn page. So anyways, I'm just laughing because maybe they did have a bunch of multiple versions and they had somebody else kind of clean up their mess. But you kind of see the movies with the ink, and they're going super slow because they don't want to screw it up. So anyways, this comes to mind as I'm kind of reading this is all these different lessons in passing this knowledge through. Don't let me fall into their hands. So part of reading the Bible and reading the greatest book ever written, doing that, you kind of learned some of the lessons of how not to fall into the enemy's hands. And, and obviously he's asking for Lord to wait patiently, as, kind of learning what it is that we need to do, and maybe stumbling a little bit along the way here and there. So anyways, that's my takeaway on Psalms 27. Okay, Proverbs 6. So, can a man scoop a flame into his lap and not have his clothes catch on fire? Can he walk on hot coals and not blister his feet? So it is with the man who sleeps with another man's wife. He who embraces her will not go unpunished. Excuses might be found for a thief who steals because he is starving, but if he is caught, he must pay back 7 times what he stole, even if he has to sell everything in his house. But the man who commits adultery is an utter fool, for he destroys himself. He would be wounded and disgraced. His shame will never be erased. For the woman's jealous husband will be furious, and he will show no mercy when he takes revenge. He will accept no compensation, nor be satisfied with a payoff of any size. And, what's interesting is we kind of remember that, right? Remember that guy, I forgot what part of the story, where maybe it was Isaac's sons. Maybe it was, I think it was Isaac's sons when their sister was raped, and the guy said, "Oh, I raped her, but I'd marry her. Tell me what I need to do to marry her." And then they had the whole town circumcised, and while they're in pain, Isaac's sons went and slaughtered everybody. Do you guys remember that story? what is the rappers? Some of the rappers. But anyways, that's part of the story that that of how things played out, folks. Back then, people took this stuff far more seriously than we do now. There's been a degradation and an acceptance of people who cheat on their spouse, on others, betray trust, and so forth. And so, it's a tough situation, right? Because they've legalized this immorality. Before, if a spouse cheated on another spouse and it was proven, the other spouse would have economic damages, and they would lose custody of their kids. That's my understanding. I don't know if that's the way the law was, or these are all kind of wives' tales or something. But if you cheated on your spouse and you got caught, the consequences were pretty dire, right? You would not only be out the money, you'd be out your family, and you would be in shame. And that's what helped keep people honest, and that's what helped people from doing stupid shit that ended up, getting themselves killed, and then the other person that did the killing, that would disrupt their family as well, because obviously the criminal justice system would lock them up too. And so these types of things, are these types of things, I do at times think that we need to go back to it. I don't know how you go back to it. You kind of have to peel it back slowly, because I guess maybe it has to start with our youth. But with regards to the schools nowadays, it's going hard left the other way. You have a situation where people are just nuts. They're trying to sexualize our kids, and these criminals have taken over a lot of different levels of government. So we need to figure out how to fight back and vote all these bums out, because they're not letting up, folks. They're making it worse and worse and worse. And they are literally just nothing more than Satan's disciples, is what it feels like. They put Satan's works ahead of the works of God and ahead of people. And so it's a pretty brutal situation we find ourselves in. So here's what I would say is, we're just wrapping up, and I am going to be on another call at 9:30 with Arizona. So if anybody wants to join me, I'm going to take a couple minute break before I log in. And so Liz Harris has got, I think, like 70, 80 volunteers there at 7:30 in Arizona. I'm going to talk about the status of Arizona. I'm working on the data in Arizona with regards to this 2.1 million ballot recount. And I'm going to kind of share some of the things I'm thinking about and the approach I'm going to take. So if you guys would like to listen in, I'll probably be on one computer on a GoToMeeting, but then I'll go and I'll do this, the StreamYard here, so that it posts on YouTube. So if you guys like, you're more than welcome to listen in. I'm going to post a quick link here, probably in about 6-7 minutes. So I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. My wife just got home from she had to go take care of some stuff at her store, and she works with me, and she still owns a store that she has to help out with time to time. So she's had a long day. So I'm going to go say hi to her real quick. And so thank you all for joining me this evening. If I guess I might see you in a few minutes. I should be going live in about 12, 13 minutes from now. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. God bless you. God bless your family and friends. May God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of the world. And may peace be with you. And if for some reason you don't have peace, I do believe that if you put God first, peace will find you. So thank you again, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks.